He's the reason that all the other characters are able to grow. They have the arc that they have.
But you get the feeling that he feels he needs to atone for something.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yes.
I thought about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through, I would love to stop it right now and just say, all right, who do you think it is?
Nice! Back at it, Fright Club Live, in front of that great Gateway Film Center crowd, Columbus, Ohio, and we have got a good one tonight.
Yes, we do. But real quick poll. How many of you are only here because you have a crush on Lily from AT&T?
Okay. I'm not putting my hand up. I'm just pointing at the people that do. Yeah, we were trying to remember in Happy Hour if this is maybe just the second Fright Club Live we've done that we had a new movie, a premiere, because we did it for The Dead Don't Die.
That's right.
And then we have this one, unless I'm forgetting something.
No, because we were supposed to have done St. Maud and also Antlers, but there was a plague. And
right.
It didn't let us do those things.
I'm telling you, man, that April, that was going to be our month. We were going to kill it, and I think the point is we're the biggest victims of COVID. And I think we all can agree on that. No, welcome. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're from madwolf.com, Fright Club Live. And it was just last time. We usually don't do 2 live events in a row, but we were doing it this time for a very good reason. But we had a great crowd and a great time last time when we showed The Skin I Live In. That's right. That was super fun. And Richard wrote a really great, very sort of complicated review of the movie that is very complicated itself. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting was how few people had seen it. Yeah, that was great.
We ahead of time, we thought that was one of the maybe bigger films that we had scheduled into Fright Club, and I was surprised about how many people had not seen it before, and we scarred Brandon for life. And I didn't think that would happen either, but I clearly have no idea what is and isn't scarring.
Yeah, I love that because it's not that it has a twist ending, but there's a big twist in the movie you don't want to give away to somebody that hasn't seen it. So that was great. And speaking of that, we had a great weekend. I know a lot of you joined us this weekend as we had a couple of events with Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp. Speaking of twist endings, she came in for a couple of live events, and she was fantastic.
She was the nicest lady ever. She's like the nicest person in the whole world. It was alarming almost.
And so we bought her some Tito's and cranberry, and we got her to agree to be on this podcast.
Yes, we did.
Sometime soon, so we're going to hold her to that.
Yes, we are.
Definitely. So that should be fun. But she was just fantastic, and so that's been leading us up to tonight, where we have the premiere 2 days early. It's opening on Friday. Werewolves Within. We didn't know till recently, since we're not gamers. This is based on a video game.
Yep.
And so we'll find out afterwards how many of you gamers can tell us exactly how close it comes to the video game. And that, by the way, since it is new, we're not going to talk that much about it tonight, but I do want to get your reactions afterwards. So come on down after, and we'd love to get you on tape talking about what you thought of the movie. And I'd be shocked if you don't love it, because we got to see it, I think, last week or so.
Yeah.
And it is a lot of fun.
It's very fun. There's another movie that's going to open this week at Gateway Film Center, and it is called My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To. It's a really moving, powerful vampire story. We loved it. We were very impressed by the film itself, and we were excited to find that the Gateway Film Center is going to schedule our short film Godspeed in front of it for its whole run here. So if you didn't get to see Godspeed last Fright Club, you should go see this movie because it's awesome, and you get to see Godspeed, which is very exciting.
Yeah, and thank you, by the way, to everybody that did see it for the kind words last time. And actually, speaking of little intros, we just found out tonight that there's about a 7-minute intro to this movie from the director, right? And the star, Sam Richardson.
Because it's a sneak peek, so they're going to, I don't know what they're going to tell us, but that's cool.
Yeah, so I look forward to that. Hey, Jeff, come on in. So, this one is perfect because, as you can see, the topic tonight is Mr. Nice Guy, Nice Guys in Horror, and this movie tonight definitely has one, but we're going to talk about some other movies, 4 others, that have a nice guy in horror as well, and talk about some good ones. So, anything beforehand, before we start? Nothing? No qualifiers or anything?
Nope.
Okay, so we will start with our number 5 nice guy, and this is from the classic. We might have talked about this movie more than any other on this podcast, but not specifically about this character.
No.
So this is great. It's Dick Halloran from The Shining.
I can remember when I was a little boy. My my grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining. And for a long time, I thought it was just the two of us that had the shine to us. Just like you probably thought you was the only one. But there are other folks, though mostly they don't know it or don't believe it.
A great character and definitely a nice guy. But I have to say, my favorite line of his in this movie is probably, "They were just a bunch of assholes."
That's right.
Completely unreliable assholes.
I love that. But, of course, Dick Halloran is played by Benjamin Sherman Scatman Crothers, and he is fantastic in this. And, you know, he meets that really bloody demise, which is just a shame because he's just trying to help pretty much throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, and he's really the only person who talks to Danny, you know, with any sort of, even his mom doesn't really talk to him. I think he's like listening and paying attention to what is happening. And you just really, I think, feel for Dick Halloran when he knows that this little boy is going to be able to see all of these awful things while he's here, and he just feels for him, you know? I think the scene where they talk to each other across that table is really moving for that reason, and I think that Crothers' performance is very tender and lovely. And I know that he didn't enjoy making this movie. Very famously, that axe to the gut came 70 times.
Yeah. Can you imagine that?
No, and he just kept, like, he'd cry and be like, you know, Mr. Kubrick, what? And he just kept doing it again and again and again. And it makes, for me, now it makes his performance that much sadder.
I heard he was quoted as saying, "That Stanley Kubrick is just an asshole." No, actually, he was quoted as saying, "That movie was all right to make, but, you know, Stanley likes to do a lot of takes. It gets kind of boring, but when you take a job, you do it." Unquote. Yeah, it's a great nice guy character. Because think about it, before he meets that bloody end, he's away. He's away from the Overlook.
He's back with his art.
He's got that fantastic painting. He's watching TV, and he just feels the need. He's such a good guy. He has to go back and help.
He probably shouldn't have.
Probably
but they wouldn't have a snowcat if he didn't.
That's exactly right. And, you know, he's trying to get through to the guy on the radio, and it's just not helping. And, of course, he's tied in with doing the shine, and he just has to go back because he's a good guy to the very, very end.
Yes, he is.
And he is number 5, Dick Halloran, on our list of good guys in horror.
It's a theme to point out that nice guys very rarely make it all the way through a horror film.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. So we'll find out if that holds true for the rest of the movie. So actually moving up to number 4 on our list of good guys in horror, it is from the movie we're going to see tonight, and the character's name is Finn, played by Sam Richardson in Werewolves Within.
I know it's easy to point the finger and fear each other. But can we all just take a breath? Please hold off on being enemies. All I'm asking is that you be a good neighbor. Like Mr. Rogers.
With guns, though.
With guns, yes.
Mr. Rogers with guns. Who's in?
This is such a fun movie, and we're not going to talk too much about it because obviously you haven't seen it, but the topic almost was whodunits, which is, I think, one of the things I like the best about this movie is that that's what it quickly turns into, like an Agatha Christie movie with werewolves, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I guess one thing I think Sam Richardson, who's the star, I believe he's also a producer.
He is.
So he's getting involved big time in this, and that's why he's probably going to give us. He's the guy to give us the intro at the beginning. But I think the interesting thing to notice about his good guy character is how much he lives by a Mr. Rogers code.
Yes.
And also might pay attention to how much or how little his good guyness changes as the adventure continues. So that's about all we're going to say about Werewolves Within, because we're going to see it here in just a few minutes. But he is number 4 on our list of horror good guys. All right. Moving
Real
up.
quick.
Yeah.
Number 3 has a spoiler.
Oh, yes. The trailer of number 3 has a spoiler.
So I want to tell you about this because you might not have seen it. The movie is not that old.
It is Lee from A Quiet Place. Has anyone not seen A Quiet Place?
Are we going to ruin this movie for any of you? Okay.
Well, it's Lee from A Quiet Place. needs a tissue after that trailer. Wow.
Kind of a bring down. I'm sorry.
I know you needed one just from putting this together.
I did.
And actually, John Krasinski has said that originally the line was just going to be, I love you, and it was Millicent Simmons' idea to make it, I have always loved you, and that is just the kick, isn't it?
It
I
is.
mean, it just got you.
Because the whole movie, you know, he and his oldest daughter have some issues
Right.
that they're trying to work through quietly without drawing the attention of these evil monsters. And, he's trying to get past this problem that they have, and he's working on little machines for her. And I think for me, their relationship is the most interesting and compelling part of the film. And even though, you couldn't call him a bad dad, it's like they're having some issues, as, I recall having, as an adolescent, issues with my dad. And I just think that Krasinski does a remarkable job of making that character problematic and also just a dear person.
And I think exactly what you said is one of the things that makes the beginning of Quiet Place 2 so good, because one of the things it does, it reaffirms the relationship they had before all this started and before they lost little Bo, that they were very, very close. Obviously,
I didn't show you the Bo death scene, so at least there's that.
Because, in the beginning of Quiet Place 2, Reagan goes off with him.
Yeah.
And they're together during the first of the invasion. So it strengthens that character bond in the few minutes that he is in it in the prologue. But yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, they're in very strenuous situation, obviously, throughout the whole movie, but he's some sort of engineer. He's making the implant for her, and he's doing the light rigging and all that stuff, and then, of course, sacrificing himself at the end. So he definitely qualifies here. And one thing I didn't know until just this week, I was doing research for this. Originally, there was talk of this movie being part of the Cloverfield franchise.
Huh.
Which I think Krasinski has said that he wasn't sure he would be on board with that, but the fact that it got to start its own thing. So I'm definitely glad. Not that there's anything wrong with the Cloverfield movies, but this was so great on its own. But Lee, a great good guy character, even though there's so many questions about it, because I think it's funny you say that. You can't call him a bad dad. I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
I mean, the original Quiet Place, his hand is up. The original Quiet Place had some haters, and that's fine. You can not like any movie, but so maybe that's one of the things, consciously or unconsciously, that they addressed in part 2 with that little prologue. But a good guy, a good nice guy, number 3 on our list, and that is Lee from A Quiet Place. Let's do another spoiler trailer, why don't we? And this is number 2 on our list. Good guy from the 2004 edition.
It's a little older. You're
of
more
Dawn
likely
of
to
the
have seen it.
Dead. Dawn of the Dead from 2004. This is going to be a bit of a spoiler, and the character is Michael. Good guy Michael.
Stay on the boat.
I can help you.
It's okay. It's gonna be all right.
No. It won't.
It will.
You sure you want to do this?
Yeah. I think I'll just stay here a while. Enjoy the sunrise.
Another testament to the nice guys not making it.
They don't.
Oh,
I know, so often.
That was a tough one.
It was. And actually, when I decided that the topic would be nice guys, this was the first other person who sprung to mind. I bet Michael was a big fan of Mr. Rogers. I bet he was. It's such a great character. And
It is.
You know, one of the things I love about that particular clip is that she doesn't blink. She's just watching the whole time, and you hear the gun go off, and she doesn't blink. It's a great, they carve out very memorable characters pretty quickly in this film.
They do, and they've got a pretty big ensemble.
Yeah.
Everybody's good, but they do a good job with the characterizations, especially the more I thought about this character once you put this together. If you think back to the things he says in the movie, and you just get a little bit of a peek into his backstory,
Yep.
you get the feeling that at the end there, not only is he doing what he has to do because he's been bitten, but you get the feeling that he feels he needs to atone for something.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yes.
I mean, he talks about his family, and he talks about some strife that has had in his family life, and he's a very calm guy, keeps a cool head through the whole thing, and of course there's a bit of an attraction there with Sarah Polley. But it seems like he's fine with it because he needs to atone. One
of the things I actually love about that character is that in the mall, there is this constant battle for alpha. Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, the dick guy who winds up being on
the dick
from Modern Family, that guy. I think that they're all battling for who's going to be in charge and who people are going to listen to. Mm-hmm. And in the end, quietly, it's Michael they all listen to. And when Ving Rhames says he's leaving this mall, and Sarah Polley says, I think I want to go too. Yeah. Nobody goes until Michael says, I saw a bus. Yeah. He's the guy everybody trusts and believes in, and I appreciate that about this film.
Yeah, and it's a really good. We've come back to this movie a lot too. I really like this.
Yes.
Really like this one.
Easily my favorite Zack Snyder film, and that's because James Gunn wrote it.
And
George Romero wrote it first, so he's got a lot of good stuff to work with.
And it's got a fantastic beginning, and then that
best.
ending, and then of course what comes after that part is also very cool. Mm-hmm. So, number 2 on our list of good guys in horror, and that is Michael from Dawn of the Dead, leading us up to number 1. And this one not only is number 1 on this, but you've already talked about maybe putting together a saddest deaths in horror, and this would probably be at the top of your list as well. This qualifies both. And this is from 28 Days Later, and it's Brendan Gleeson as Frank.
So, I'm Frank anyway, Jim.
Selena,
good to meet you. This is my daughter, Hannah. Come on, sweetheart, say hello. Come on.
So I'm Frank anyway. I love this character so much. I just love him so much. And you thought I was going to put you through that one too, didn't you? You did. Sometimes it come up on Twitter like, what horror scene did you in? And that's the one with the bird. I always have it. I just bawled.
Well, and remember,
no, move, get away.
And remember,
oh my God,
talking about him being such a good guy, think about how that came to be. That only happened because he was trying to shoo that crow off from eating, from picking at the body of one of the infected. So he's just a good guy, and of course, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
And he gets it right in the eye, and it's. You see it coming. It's slow motion enough. Like, oh, no.
It's such a brilliant scene.
Yeah.
Danny Boyle directed this. It's my favorite Danny Boyle movie, which is kind of crazy because, of course, he's made some other very, very big movies. And Alex Garland wrote it, who wrote Ex Machina and Annihilation. So, again, I mean, the pedigree of the filmmakers here is remarkable. The cast is spectacular. And it's another one where I think all of the characters are so well articulated early on that you know exactly who they are and what they'll do, and their arcs are really good. And then in a very Romero sort of style, they realize that the infected, that's not the worst thing. So they get to safety and they find that it's actually the government that's the worst thing, which I love when anytime a zombie movie kind of calls back to Romero. But I love everything about this movie. I think this movie is just a masterpiece. But for me, I think it's Frank's character that makes it so. He's the reason that all the other characters are able to grow. They have the arc that they have. And he's not just a dad to Hannah. You can see really quickly he is a dad to all of them, and that's what they need. That's what they all need just to get through this event.
And that's a great introduction to that character because he's got all that riot gear on. You think he's such a badass, and they don't know what to expect. And then he's just all smiles and he takes off, hey, and he seems to be getting through it just fine. And it's just another sort of side to a character that, in the short amount of time that he's there, just rips your heart out when that drop of blood hits in his eye, because it's an instant realization. He knows, and he has to get his daughter away from him, quick enough that she'll survive. And it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
It's heartbreaking. He's the ultimate good guy in horror, and that's why he's number 1 from 28 Days Later, Brendan Gleeson as Frank. And of course, Brendan Gleeson playing him.
That's the whole.
Yeah. He's such a great, comforting presence to see on screen.
And they could have gone a lot of directions. I've thought about this more often than I should have. But, I mean, if you take Brendan Gleeson out of this movie, you're like, are you telling me only the wildly attractive people survive the zombie apocalypse? And then Brendan Gleeson shows up. No, regular people did too. All right. At least for a while they did.
Frank from 28 Days Later, number 1 on our nice guys in horror, and that takes us up to the movie we're going to see tonight. And we're up against the clock, so we got to get at it. So come on in. It's hey, Michael. It's Werewolves Within is the premiere. By the way, say thanks to Chris Hamill for getting this for us. Chris Hamill from the Gateway Film Center. And a big thank you to Chris for lining up showing our film Godspeed before each showing of My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, which is a great movie here opening at the Gateway, so check that out. We'll be back next month, July 14th, I believe is the date. We don't know yet what the movie's going to be or the topic. They will hash that out, and I'll take as much credit for it as I possibly can, as usual. So until then, remember, we do want to get your reactions after the movie. Since we didn't talk anything about it, we come on down and we'll get your reactions for the podcast after the movie's over. Tell us what you thought.
97 minutes later.
It gave you a little bit if Edgar Wright might have directed Jaws. You know, there were so many Jaws references and a lot of Edgar Wright touches, I thought, especially now seeing it the second time, that really jumped out.
It's funny that you mentioned Edgar Wright because I was thinking a lot of how in Hot Fuzz, how like very little details eventually play like a big part, like in the end, like the snowshoes. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a really fun time watching this.
It was funny. I thought about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through, I just leaned over and said, I would love to stop it right now and just say, all right, who do you think it is? You know, and you probably would have thrown shit at me, but still. Because, you know, watching it since we already knew, like, oh, yeah, you can see how, as a good filmmaker does, you want to throw a little bit of shade over here, a little bit over here, and then what's going on. And it really is a lot of fun. I think it's going to do well.
It's been such a long time since I saw something that did that whodunit thing, right? Like everybody trapped in this one. And I thought the dumbass couple from the garage, like everything they said was it. What did that eyeball just say?
Right.
Everything they said just made me so happy.
There were so many, and some I didn't catch the first time. There were so many little those. Just when you think the scene is just about over, there's one more little line of dialogue. You know, and it's just like that.
Yeah.
That is so funny. What do you think?
This movie is batshit.
Just like the town.
In a good way.
In a good way, yes. I really love that it's a werewolf movie where the werewolf did not come out until the last 10 minutes, and the atmosphere around the werewolf was great, and you didn't see it until the end, and that was great.
I agree with you. I thought it was really fun the way they kept just saying, you know, it's not a werewolf, and they had really excellent options as to, well, what it is. What could it be?
I was actually all set for the whole werewolf thing to be a red herring.
Yeah.
Completely, because it would just work that well as just a regular thriller. Like, oh, it's a werewolf movie. No, it's not.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I love the way that they brought in this sort of, you know, red-blue business.
Right.
So that for a long time it seemed, well, this is like really lighthearted, but this is going to be kind of one of those political, be nice to each other. I mean, that all would have fit together so well. And in the end, it's like, no, bam, werewolf.
Yeah, well, that's true, because as much fun as you're having, it's actually making some really important points, even as the body count is rising, and we're having a lot of fun.
What I really liked was the way the cast bounced off one another. I mean, it was like gag after gag after gag. I mean, you just found yourself laughing and smiling through the entire film. But not only that, just the way it felt so cinematic and just meant for the big screen. I mean, you know, if you think about Ruben's first film, Scare Me, I mean, it was so contained and very isolated and personal, where this one felt so much bigger and, you know, making the town such a part of the movie. You know, I really loved that and liked how that came to the forefront.
And at the very beginning, when it was Ruben and Sam Richardson giving the intro, how high were they? I mean, come on.
I loved the nods to other genre flicks. Obviously, the Friday the 13th, or not the Friday the 13th, but Freddy Krueger
Nightmare on Elm Street, yeah.
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street. But my favorite film is The Lost Boys. And that last joke line and then the shot at the end of just that two-shot with their reactions, I immediately thought, all the damn vampires.
Yeah, when the grandpa comes home.
People
nice.
And
I like
it. That just got me. I don't know if that was intentional on the filmmaker's part, but that definitely seemed like a nod to me.
I think it was definitely intentional. Most things are intentional. Even at the very, very beginning, the very first victim, how much was that reminiscent of the first kill in Jaws?
Oh, yeah, it was so Jaws. It was
so
so
much.
Jaws. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring a different perspective. This was obviously based on a video game, and I think one thing that I felt was interesting is that video game is based on, everyone has a role, but someone's not the role that they are, and I love at the end.
So great.
Yeah,
It was so great.
Good.
Now, see, now that's a touch that we wouldn't have known.
Nope,
Thank you
we
for
would
that
not
gaming
have.
perspective. No, I appreciate that because I think in the video game to big screen movies that we've seen, so many just blow.
Yeah, they really do. And this one, because it sets itself up like a clue kind of a situation, and I just think they played it out so well.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, not to belabor the joke, but I really enjoyed the scientist character doing science with the capital S. She's got like a centrifuge that she's spinning hairs in, I think, and like a generic progress bar for the genetic code. I don't know. It was really good. My only real criticism of the movie is the lack of Indigenous and First Nations voices. I feel like if you're going to have a pipeline plot, you kind of need that element. But beyond that, I mean, I think it was a really smart movie, lots of really great performances. And yeah, just to echo what everyone else said, just a really enjoyable, really fun film.
I loved how weird the scientist was. I love that she was just unapologetically she hated people. And she was just going to be sort of really awkward the whole time. I thought she was super fun.
Well, it sounds like everybody loved it, and thank you so much. We were hoping you would. We thought you would, so we appreciate that. Thank you for all of your feedback, and thanks for coming out. This podcast should be live and ready to go on Monday, and you can find it, of course, on all your favorite podcast apps, or, of course, on any of our socials. We're at madwolf.com or Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook and Instagram, and we got our own Fright Club podcast Twitter account at Fright Club Pod. So all that stuff is fun. Hope you enjoy the movie. I think you will. Be sure to come down and talk to us after and join us next month and keep in touch. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Okay, all right. I love it. Thank you so much. Enjoy the movie. We'll talk to you. Roll it. Werewolves Within.